But yep, this is the last chapter, positive psychology, and it is a very, very interesting chapter, and I'm glad that it's in the portion. Oops. Um, yeah. So let's see what we have in this. Just quickly go over it. Okay. So now, the thing is that we've studied about the waves of psychology in the previous chapters. There were different things. First, it began as philosophy, then it went on to then Sigmund Freud's era, so psychodynamics and psychoanalysis and all of those perspectives. Then we went to behaviorism, cognitivism, all of these different phases. The one of the recent most phases is positive psychology. So, yeah, basically, psychologists started realizing that we're only focusing on all the negative aspects. Let's also focus on the positive aspects, which is how to enhance your life, how to live a better life, and all of those things. So, basically, they started discussing how to live a happier, healthier life. And it's also important to learn that perspective. Okay. Um, yeah. So, there are inherent qualities. Okay, people think that, oh, some people, uh, yeah, they did selfless service, and कुछ लोग, some people say कि मैं तो ये नहीं कर सकता, social work वगैरह मैं तो नहीं कर सकता, कुछ अच्छे संत आदमी लोग ही कर सकते हैं, those kinds of beliefs. However, and on the other hand, you also see people who know that certain behaviors are incorrect and they still indulge in those. However, we usually humans normally focus always on the negatives first and then the positives. So basically, positive psychology focuses on virtues and character strengths, happiness, which and leading to a better life, to a more enriching and nourishing, meaningful life. That's what the focus of positive psychology was. Okay, now the meaning of positive psychology. It is a scientific study of what makes life worth living. That is something, obviously, this is the best thing you can learn because it's given by Peterson. So let's just mark this guy. Very important. If you begin any answer related to positive psychology with this, it'll be great. Okay. In fact, there's also a definition. So Martin Seligman was the person who officially introduced positive psychology as a subfield because when he became the president of American Psychological Association in 1998, that's when he started. Otherwise, there were a lot of people before him, like Maslow, who used the word positive psychology first. However, this guy was the one who said that, okay, let's just make it, the main theme of that particular year. Any questions?
No, no.
Okay. Um, yeah. So it gives basically importance to studying things like joy, courage, happiness, rather than just studying uh, illnesses, disorders, and stress and all of those things. Okay, very important definition. All the definitions in all the chapters can be written separately in one paper because these definitions, if you learn by heart, the best thing is that you can use it in multiple answers, and then it gives a superb impression to your teacher that this person knows what they are studying, and how good you are or how precise you are also in the future in your particular field also defines. Also, you can understand by the way a person knows how to define the concepts. So again, by heart, this definition, I always emphasize on this one thing. um, Positive psychology is the scientific study of positive human functioning and flourishing on multiple levels that include biological, personal, relational, institutional, cultural, and global dimensions of life. Okay, so basically, positive psychology is a science of happiness, human strength, and growth. Um, okay, why is it important and needed? Obviously, we always give
Ma'am,
weightage to, yeah.
I wanted to ask if I start any answer of this chapter. So I write this definition of Seligman or of Peterson.
So if it's a very short answer, then you can just write the one by Peterson. However, if it's a 5-mark answer, or something like, okay, 2-mark answer also, in case if they ask you what is positive psychology. If they ask you anything related to what is positive psychology, it's important that you give a proper definition of it. Very important. Okay.
What
And
is
for
a 2-mark
obviously for a long
answer?
answer,
Yeah.
yeah. So in the 2-mark answer, if what is positive psychology is an important
So I
part.
write both the definitions.
Yeah, you can write both. Yeah, you can write that, and basically, yeah, this is this much. And you can also mention Martin Seligman introduced it, and meaning of, basically Martin Seligman was the one who emphasized it, and basically this positive psychology is a scientific study of what makes life worth living. In fact, for even if you write a definition, it's good enough. Always when you write a definition, then the teacher knows for sure that the student knows her subject. Okay. Yep. Why is it important? Because always a more weight and attention is always given to negatives in human behavior as compared to positives. So negative events, obviously, we are also always focused more on negative. Even if you see films, if a film is all happy, happy, very few people want to go watch it. So, but yeah, studies strongly suggest that one negative comment can undo many acts of kindness, and one bad trait can undermine a person's reputation, leading to downfall. So basically, we always, why does that? Because we are, oh acha baki sab acha kiya, but ye to negative kiya na. We always focus more on negative. Um, However, positive psychology helps you become a person. So just because you don't have a mental disorder doesn't mean you have mental wellness, right? So this particular thing is also like, okay, well, how do we become better human beings? How do we focus on that? In fact, in India we don't find such a concept very new, because spirituality and all of these things we've been studying, where we go towards enlightenment and becoming better. So that's why for us, but for a for a lot of countries it was a very new concept. It was very uh, something which brought a lot of new aspects to it. Okay. um okay. So life above zero. Positive psychology emphasizes life above zero. Basically, zero is a line that divides illness from health and unhappiness from happiness. So this is the neutral point. This is well-being, just like I said. So this could be neutral, this could be unhappy, and this could be happy. So in the same way, this is mental illness, neutral, mental well-being. So positive psychology emphasizes on the study which is beyond the neutral point, which is above neutral, and we'll study some very interesting concepts. Okay, so we focus on these things. Okay. Um. Yeah. So you can see the above section is basically your point. You have to read this on your own. Of course, I'm just giving you a very brief summary of it. Um. So the upper section indicates the positive characteristics, and lower is negative, which is below zero. Okay, so +1 to -1 to +1 indicates neutral characteristics. Um, okay. So DSM, according to DSM classification, as we go down below zero, we see disorders and dysfunction. Major objective of positive psychology is to see above zero, because we've always been focusing on below zero. Okay. Uh, yeah. Life above zero covers a large area of aspects of human behavior, including happiness, optimism, hope, trust, character strength, compassion, empathy, mindfulness, resilience. All of these studies are the major subject matters of um, positive psychology. Okay. Um, Now let's see what is the broaden and build theory by explained by Barbara Fredrickson. She spoke about broaden and build theory of positive emotions. Okay, we think of positive emotions as being a way to open up to positive things in our life. Okay, so when we are happy, we experience positive emotions. We tend to think more positive thoughts. Okay, and this is reflected in our behaviors too. So people who generally think negative also act negatively. Sometimes you feel कि हमेशा negative ही बात करते रहता है, हमेशा बुरा ही behave करता है. This person is always angry on others. This person always throws tantrums. It's because that person is constantly thinking negative. In the same way, if you're constantly thinking positive, you're also behavior, you're behaving very well with other people. It reflects positivity, reflects in your behaviors too. So being in a positive frame of mind, we want to be around people, we want to socialize, and thus we also effectively increase or build our psychological resources. So that's what this theory says, ki if you're positive, you want to be around happy people, and basically positivity attracts more positivity. You're building your psychological resources, you're becoming stronger, healthier, and in terms of well-being, you're getting better. Okay, so positive emotion leads to broadening, increasing the number of actions we can think of performing. That is these lines are basically the gist of what this theory means, that positive emotions say your actions and your what how you perform everything. I always say this also for students who are giving an exam. If you're thinking positive, if you're constantly anxious, worrying about kya hoga paper mein, what will happen, that does not allow you to give your best, does not allow you to perform in the best ways. And positive emotion, basically if you're thinking positive, my focus always, even say for example in counseling, is that you are capable of thinking more positively, so you can um, have a better way of understanding and performing, and you at least give your best in an exam. Those students who are actually least bothered, right, even though they study very little, they give their best. अगर वो लोग 40% portion पढ़ के जाते हैं तो they appear for the full 40%. Whereas some students who are anxious, they may have studied 100%, but in the paper they're only able to give 80% of their potential. Why? Because of anxiety. So we remember this through that positive emotion will lead to an increasing or the number of actions that we can think of performing. Okay. Uh, okay. We can experience greater number of positive emotions, which will increase our strength through psychological and social resources. Why social resources? Because if you're positive, you're being nice, if you're happy, you will attract people. If you're angry constantly or getting angry on people around you, you do not find friends. So social strength, psychological resources, everything increases. Now there are different way this part is cancelled, but I'll just go over it very briefly. There are different studies. One of the studies of positive psychology is happiness. Okay, so there are three major theories of understanding happiness. One is the needs goal satisfaction theory, which says that if your need is which claims that if your need is fulfilled is when you feel happy. So I wanted to be a psychologist, I became a psychologist, I'm happy. I want to get this much percent. So whenever your need, or like I want this food or I want this, whenever that need is fulfilled, it leads to happiness. Process and activity theory, especially, was a book um, by Csikszentmihalyi called Flow. This theory says that you find happiness in the flow, in the process. Like say Michelangelo, he used to, or say a musician, say Mozart or Beethoven. These guys used to work whenever they used to work, they used to not think about the outside world. They were very happy within their own selves. They were happy in the process of it, and that is where you feel happiness. And genetic and personality theory obviously says that genes and your personality has a very major role to play in how you feel or experience happiness. However, recent research a lot of us it has found that social your amount of social connections and friends and all of that also are an important determinant of happiness. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Tanish, yep. Okay, I thought you were saying something because okay. Next
No,
is your
my mummy came.
okay. Please mute yourself. Um, yep. So the next one is determinants of happiness, and yeah, basically what it is. So here it is: social and intimate, strong social, intimate social relationships, optimism, self-esteem, achieving challenging goals, perceiving meaning in life. So meaning in life can be through maybe you're helping someone, you're working for a social cause. Okay, perspective of looking at the world as an opportunity rather than a threat. These are all determinants of happiness. Now, optimism. What is optimism? Um, okay. Do you feel hopeless, helpless, and worthless? The opposite, basically, in contrast to this, hopeless, helpless, and worthless. In contrast to it, you may also feel hopeful, challenged, or confident. So in a particular situation, what do you feel? Okay, we also have a scale that we study. Okay, I've got a 8.4.3 is cancelled, which is not this. Okay, great. So in any situation, you have to see what are you feeling. Are you feeling hopeless, helpless, and worthless, or are you feeling hopeful, challenged, and confident? Okay, that's very important to observe. So basically, the first one is your uh, pessimism, and this one is your optimism. And Seligman was the one who found this. He had done an experiment um, on, and he wrote a book. He did an experiment on learned helplessness, where he had kept a dog, and this is just for your information. The dog was kept in a place where there were currents and all coming from the floor. The dog, it was like in a box, and he tried to jump over the box, and he tried 1 or 2 times, and when he couldn't, he just became helpless. He just gave up. So that's called learned helplessness. However, there's also a thing called learned optimism, and that's why Seligman is the father of optimism, where you're feeling hopeful, challenged, and confident rather than the opposite. Okay. Meaning of optimism: mental attitude that includes feeling of hopefulness, belief that the future will be positive, favorable, and desirable, and that negative events are temporary setbacks to overcome. This is very important. You have to buy this part. Okay, because these 3 points, which are hopeful, challenged, and confident, are basically here. So what is optimism exactly? It's, you have an attitude in mind which is hopeful in general. So you're hopeful, and you believe that the future will be positive, favorable, and desirable, and that negative importance are just temporary setbacks. Okay, so you don't say ki, okay, negative kuch hua. For example, someone, there's a death in the family, or say some bad thing that has happened in your life, like a relationship breakup. Okay, you will not say कि मेरे साथ हमेशा यही बुरा ही होता है, everything is just always bad, everything goes wrong for me. Okay, you will not, you will believe that, okay, this is a temporary setback and it will be okay. The same way you're hopeful कि, okay, things will be better, future will be positive. And just because right now it's not desirable, just because I'm failing right now, doesn't mean that I will always be a failure. That is optimism. If you remember, depression was helplessness, hopelessness, and helplessness largely. Again, there's a lot of despair also in this depression. This is the opposite. Yeah, there are two components: feeling and thinking. If optimism involves feelings like being hopeful, confident, and positive. Okay, optimists tend to view present adverse events as not stable as in temporary. So they think that present events which are adverse, which is um, not good or not favorable, they see it as temporary, कि ये तो अभी के लिए मेरे साथ बुरा हो रहा है, in the future it will be fine, it will be okay, it's not permanent, it's not that my life will permanently be bad. The second thing is that they don't blame themselves for being responsible for negative outcome, whatever it is. Okay, for example, uh, if you don't get a job, or if you fail an exam, they don't blame themselves for it completely. It's not that they don't take responsibility, that's also important to know, but you just can't keep blaming yourself कि मैं ही बुरा हूँ, मेरे ही वजह से हुआ है, मुझे मेरे ही कारण लड़की छोड़ के गई, and those kinds of things. Okay, and optimism does not generalize failure for future events. So he does not say कि okay, just because I failed this exam, I will always keep failing in my life. He doesn't generalize it. Generalize का मतलब है, अगर एक चीज में कुछ हुआ तो उसको पूरे in general मेरे साथ हमेशा ऐसा होगा. You're generalizing that. Okay, so in Seligman, in his book Learned Optimism, uh, so this theory of optimism was given by him, and he's called the father of optimism. He speaks about, basically, optimism is, you see the glass half full or half empty. All of us know about that experiment. There's a glass which is half full. Some people see it as half full, and some people see it as half empty. Okay, now optimist versus pessimist. This table you can, oops, yeah, this you can look at this table. Um, about confidence, choosing the best options or results from available, even if it's a failure, you choose the best options. Confidence, you have positive approach towards challenges and difficulties, whereas here it's negative, here it's lack of confidence, here it's you choose the worst option. um, yeah, difficulties seem as opportunity, and difficulty seems as a curse to make the person weak. And this, they are hopeful about the future, and they are hopeless about the future. Okay. Now, what is empathy? Empathy, again, a very beautiful concept. You feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. So, that is a capacity to place oneself in another person's position. Empathy is basically, in simple words, put your feet in another person's shoes. Okay. There are different kinds of empathy. Um, yeah. This whole paragraph, I believe there is no particular definition of it. So you can just understand this paragraph and write that. There are three types of empathy. One is cognitive. So you know how the other person feels and you can imagine what they might be thinking. Okay. So you take their perspective. For example, real cognitive empathy मतलब अगर जैसे किसी का breakup हुआ and you're feeling, that's a different thing. However, um, if you can also see this other side of a person, for example, say parents of a criminal, बहुत बड़ा अगर criminal है जो पूरे देश को पता है कि this person, how would their parents feel, even they have a perspective. If you're able to kind of understand, okay, what they are going through, something like that could be cognitive empathy, like a major level of cognitive. Otherwise, any kind of if a teacher understands what a student must be thinking. For example, if a teacher shouted at a student in front of the whole class, and the teacher is able to understand what the student is thinking, okay, or what the student must be going through, that is cognitive empathy. Next is emotional reactivity. So it means directly feeling emotions. It's a deep seated gut reaction, okay, often feel like a visceral human response. So you feel like, you feel that on another human being is intimate and can form a strong social bond, like say psychologists and clients, they are strangers at first, but the psychologist can understand maybe that emotions of their, hopefully they can understand the emotions of what the other person is, and they feel what they are going through probably. Or say, a lot of times when you watch some movies, okay, when you see like a real life situation, even in fact, even if it's not real, you do feel empathy, but you start crying. Okay, that is emotional reactivity. Next is social skills. So yeah, how are you spontaneously moved, you want to help. Social skills is basically, you're just not feeling it, but how willing you are to engage with others. There are two components. One is the driving force behind the action. um yeah, it involves other two components. Sorry, this involves two other components too. So you feel, it includes this also, and plus it also becomes a driving force. Okay, I have to do something, I have to go and help them. Okay, you can't just be overwhelmed by sadness ki, oh my god, I'm so sad, and if you keep crying, then you can't help them. But yeah, if you're understanding ki, okay, this is what this person is going through, then you definitely, then basically, yeah, you, that is called your social skills. Yeah, it includes your emotional intelligence, because people who are emotionally intelligent, they are not overwhelmed by their emotions. Okay, you look at a poor person and you only sit and start crying, then you will need help, you can't help them. Okay. um okay, empathy builds trust and increases feelings of safety, and it is also key to successful relationships. Unless and until your partner understands, or you understand your partner, what they are going through, you can't have a great relationship. So this is good that it helps you build trust and um, successful have a successful relationship. Social connections which are required for, yeah, so it is important that we also have empathy for social connections. Otherwise, if you remember, before the Renaissance, we used to hear of how the poor people used to go to the kings and queens, and they would just talk. The poor people would say, we don't have bread, so they'd be like, go eat a piece of cake, because they do not understand. So you can't form a social connections, you can't form a healthy society, and that's why people started revolting. So empathy is very important. And yeah, a world with empathy is nurturing and supportive. Imagine a world where you don't have to really take care of your own problems. There are people around to take care of it. Like I've known a person, um, they live in a certain area. It's like a chawl kind of an area. And one woman had two small kids, one 3-month-old and one 5-year-old, and she suddenly passed away. Now her husband is alone. He has to work, earn for the house. How will he provide for the children? The neighbors took care of the children. So that man did not have to worry about कि मैं बच्चों को कैसे, how will I take care of the kids? Because it was a 3-month-old baby. That baby needs constant care and nurturance, right? So imagine a world like that, where you have problems, but you know that it will be taken before you can even think of what do I do about this problem, you're taken care of. So it'll be a very nice world, where people can be creative and also take risks. So we can also progress a lot better. Okay. What are mirror neurons? They are responsible for identical emotional reactions. So for example, if somebody's crying, you just can't just look at them and just smile. If you do that, it's kind of abnormal and creepy. But basically, mirror neurons. Okay, or if you're just it's very natural response. You just can't in general, in most cases, unless there's an issue with emotional expression, in most cases you mirror what the other person is going through, even whether it's a movie or um, it's a song. Say now TikTok ke 6 second mein also people have started mirroring. So these are the mirror neurons, and they are responsible for identical emotional reactions experienced by the observer or empathizer. And research also indicates that the broad range of brain areas spanning the sensory motor cortex area, insula, and the cingulate cortex. So basically, these are your areas which are responsible for your motor movements and all of that. They may together form a neural network for empathy processing. So they're important for empathy processing. If people find it difficult to process, a lot of people who come for counseling is because they say that it's, say for example, difficult to understand this. It's very rare. However, if there's a major damage which happens in childhood, so even if a person has um, issues with expressing empathy, it's not technically, maybe some issues that they've faced in the past and they need help with that. Okay, but in general, it's very natural that these brain parts basically help you. So you can remember it as sick, SIC. Okay. Researchers revealed people whose right somatosensory cortices have been damaged no longer can judge other people's emotion. Okay, six. We've already made it. So if that part is damaged, they can't judge other people's emotions. Okay. How empathy can be nurtured? First is increase social interactions. If a person, say a very rich person, has never seen what the life of a poor person is, he will not feel empathetic towards that poor person, because okay, he has his own perspective, he lives in his own cloud, he has no idea. And that's why I feel that every curriculum, it's very important that students do some social engagement. So very important, do that. um if the more interaction, the more empathy. Second, connect through similarities. Help people understand. People will be like, acha ye to garib hai, mujhe kya lena dena, what am I to do with him? He was born poor, he chose to have kids, his problem, he should deal with it. But you can connect through similarities, like okay, even he has kids. Just imagine, you have kids, your kids are born in a nice house, they're getting food. Imagine his kids are living on the streets in the night when it rains, they have nowhere to go, they get drenched in the rain, or maybe they have to run looking for a shelter on the street. So similar, he also has a kid, you also have a kid, or any other similarities, like say, um I feel the best way to so the best similarity is the fact that they're humans. And yeah, like okay, here they say that well settled Americans, American Indians help newly arrived Indians in America. Why? Because they also know ki, oh, even we were in that place someday. Okay, ask yourself what you are feeling, understand yourself. You have to judge your own motives and emotions, and that way you will be able to empathize better. Challenge yourself, struggle hard to achieve a goal, because sometimes when we get everything in the plate, okay, सब कुछ हाथ में मिल रहा है, so then we never realize what the other person goes through. Like a 16-year-old who works in Zomato to earn a living, and we kind of make fun or we don't care about him. Recently I heard about a road accident, some celebrity's son. and the small child died, the celebrity will, have his ways through. But just his son, probably the celebrity son who was drunk and driving, if he had challenged himself that, okay, you don't have money, you will not be given money, you don't have a place to stay, you have to support your family, even if it's 200 rupees, 300 rupees in a day, or even less than that, go around. And then you may be able to understand what another person goes through. Cultivate your sense of curiosity. So you need if the more curiosity you have, the more you will want to learn about other people, and you'll have a stronger understanding of people around you. Widen your circle, contact people with different races. In India, you can say with different classes. um, how many people have friends who are street children? Most of us don't, right? Or children of your maids, or people who work for you, like your watchmen. Most of us don't make friends with them. If we widen our circle, definitely we become more empathetic. Next is mindfulness. Mindfulness is basically living in the moment. Okay. It's living in this moment right here. It's a basically it's a Buddhist concept, and it has been adopted in psychology, and a lot of research has found that mindfulness seems to work wonders for people. Okay, so mindfulness basically refers to a state of awareness. It's a type of mental alertness and plays an important role in increasing the accuracy of performing any task. It is a significant concept related to the attention process. Mindfulness is basic human ability to be fully present. Most of the times we are living in a we are having our automatic behaviors. However, mindfulness, automatic behaviors as in we think कि मैं सुबह को उठा, I walked out of the house, I took a train, I went to college. Okay, but we tend to do that very like in our हम खुद की धुन की में रहते. Sometimes even if you ask basic questions to the people who are working every day, they might not be able to, like for example, did you see if your watchman was there in your building or not? Very naturally you must have just walked and you don't know about those. Mindfulness is basically being fully present in the moment at that time. Okay, the reason why it's very important is, just imagine, we feel stressed out. Why? Because we're thinking about the future, right? कि क्या होगा future में, exam में क्या होगा. But mindfulness is basically you're living here in this moment. So that's why it is one of the best states to be in, because you're not overwhelmed by what will happen in the future, or are not stuck to the past कि मेरे साथ past में बहुत बुरा हुआ, people did very bad, because you're in this moment. You know that I don't want to let go of this moment. Okay. um it's in the here and now, living in the present, fully engaged in the task that you're performing, rather than ruminating about the past or entertaining anxieties and wishful thinking about the future, exactly as I said. uh, so yeah, that also helps you focus on what's happening right now. It's a practice, it's a state of mind, it's a practice, and you have to learn to do that. The welcome. Crow wants to come and take the lecture. um, Self-regulation and self-control of our behavior also increases because of mindfulness. Okay, so self-regulation and self-control, as if say for example, mm, I'll tell you, most of the times, a lot of times, unprotected sex also happens. Why? Because um, people are, okay, you know what? We just got into the heat of the moment and it happened. Okay, but if you're if you're alert, then you'll know. Okay, this may have consequences. So when you're mindful, you have a stronger self control over your behavior. If you're constantly thinking, maybe a person who gets addicted to alcohol, if he's constantly thinking about the past, naturally he'll open up a bottle. Or even when you're stress eating, because you're thinking and you're constantly eating, there's no regulation, there's no control because of that. Okay, mindlessness means performing a task with less concentration and little awareness of what's going on in the present moment. All of us are familiar with mindless states. Okay. um yeah, so basically mindlessness is basically you're victims of your own unconscious habits. Unconsciously you do some things. uh a lot of times these accidents which happen in train stations and all of that, it's because A lot of people say they're very used to traveling roads. They don't travel, take the bridge. They just cross the roads, cross the railway tracks, and mindlessly they are crossing. एंड क्योंकि उनको पता है ये तो मैं रोज करता हूँ, ऑटोमेटिकली करते एक पर्टिकुलर टाइम पे, दे आर थिंकिंग अबाउट समथिंग, दे डोंट ऑब्जर्व दैट अ ट्रेन इज कमिंग. मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम एक्सीडेंट्स उनके ही होते हैं जो रोज ऐसे क्रॉस करते हैं. व्हाई? बिकॉज दे आर माइंडलेसली वॉकिंग. Okay, so you're playing on your phone without realizing that you're hungry, and without even knowing what's going on, what you're feeling, what's happening. Okay, mindfulness can basically help you break such unhelpful behaviors because you're aware of what you're doing, when, why, and so then it's easier to control that habit. Okay, like people who eat mindlessly, बस खाते जा रहे, मूवी देखते देखते देखते. Okay, mindfulness can help them control such habits, and it will increase your psychological well-being. Before I go to mindful meditation bit, so mindfulness becomes particularly important in situations where mindlessness can become dangerous. For example, while driving a car. Okay, before I move forward, you guys want a break, or you have any questions?
No, ma'am, no break. We're good.
Okay, you can understand and you're being able to focus, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
great.
Ma'am,
Okay,
ma'am,
yeah.
just one question. On page
Hmm.
number 101,
Okay.
if empathy is asked for 2 marks,
Hmm.
so I'll write, means we have to write this first paragraph, right? Only the
Yeah, do
first
that.
one.
But it's always also safe to mention the three types of empathy. Anytime, if you can give like a holistic, like we studied the bottom up and top down approach, if you can write a holistic understanding of empathy, okay, basically just mention that what is empathy, and there are these three types of empathy. And you can also say that empathy can be nurtured there are, through some methods. That's all. So the person knows ki you know your concept. You don't have to explain all of these in detail. Maybe just write it in one line. Cognitive empathy is perspective taking. Emotional reactivity is to directly feel the emotions, and social skills is to uh, is the driving force to help other people. That's it. And empathy, yeah, this one paragraph. Always your, in fact, I have taken the answers which I will share with you all of a person who's a topper, and how, because 2 mark answers, they do expect more content. So only this much will not be enough for 2 marks. Maybe it's enough for 1 mark. Yeah, only this much is enough for 1 mark, but not for 2 marks. 2 marks, they expect that you explain the concept and then what comes into it. So it's very important to do that. And even if they ask, say, a 5 mark question on how can empathy be nurtured, you can at least say, okay, empathy means this. There are three types. Always, I always say that, always begin your answer with a holistic approach. So if even if they've asked you this question, and this is not just for your 12th standard, it's for any college. If you want to be a topper, if you want to understand, it took me some time to understand it, but it's the best way, that because then the person knows ki, oh, this person knows directly. So you're giving a frame. Okay, this is empathy in the first paragraph. The second three, in 2 or 3 lines, you just mentioned that there are different types of empathy, and empathy can be nurtured using a certain uh, methods. And then you write these five, this, and then obviously when you mention examples, excellent. So in every answer, please do that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Okay, we did mindfulness also. Mm. See, if you guys can't remember, okay, it's finding it difficult to remember what all concepts were there in, say, mindfulness or something like that, you can always draw symbols. Okay. Now, I have a mouse today. Let me try if I can. I missed that earlier Internet Explorer version that we had. So now, because mindfulness is, doesn't have any points for you to remember. So if you want to remember it, um, say state of awareness. So just maybe made a brain. Okay, you made a brain, and then just write aware on this. I'm not going to write it because I won't be able to. Okay, to be fully present. So just put a P, because always whenever teacher takes attendance in school, she always writes a P, right, for present. Now I can't even go niche. Okay, it's in the here and now. So maybe you can just draw a clock. Oh God, maybe you can just draw a clock. So if you draw like 4-5 symbols in such points, you'll find it very easy to remember. Okay, because they don't have any points as such, and then obviously when you write it, how do you by heart it? So this is a way to do it. Make your own symbols. Be creative. Okay. Mm, okay, let's go for mindfulness meditation. I had done this in class with y'all. Like it's a basically Buddhist philosophy where mindfulness practice is a form of meditation which has a long tradition. In fact, if you guys know about Vipassana, which is a 14-day course where you go and just sit in one place and observe what's happening in the present. So that is and mindfulness meditation, you'll also find a lot of good videos on YouTube. So the basic idea is begins with awareness that most of our working consciousness is dominated by a steady stream of unexamined thoughts and feelings, which means that most of the time we live with a there are constantly thoughts coming, and we don't even examine ki kya thoughts are. We just let them come and we keep engaging with them, and that's it. नेगेटिव थॉट्स आ रहे तो हम सोचते रहते राई का पहाड़ बना देते हैं. We keep thinking about the worst and we don't even see, okay, you know what, why am I thinking like this? I don't need to think so negative. But we don't examine it, we don't stop it, or we don't see ki why, we just let it come. So that is what they believe, that this is what happens. And constant mental chatter of one thoughts consumes a lot of mental energy and distracts us from what's actually happening in the moment. So a lot of people, um, they're living in the, they don't live the moments that they have. So past mein mere sath bahut bura hua, even if they're for example newly married, they're constantly thinking, you know, I never got happiness in my life, mera past to sirf bura hi tha. There were good things in their past, but they're only thinking about the negatives. Uske wajah se they can't even enjoy what they have right now. Like say a person who's 50 and gets success at that age, suppose that person is thinking mindlessly, he'll be like, now what's the point, मैंने इतनी मेहनत की जिंदगी भर तो मुझे सफलता नहीं मिली, I was always a failure, what's the point of. So then he will not even be able to enjoy the success which he has in the moment. You always have something in the moment which is worth living. Okay, even if it's a challenge, it's worth living because that's going to be a story for you in the future. So that these negative thoughts just don't let us also live what's happening in the moment. Like breakup ho gaya, constantly thinking about breakup. But then what about the friends which you have right now in this moment? People who are not married or who are single constantly keep, I don't have a boyfriend, I don't get to stay with, I don't get to go out, this and that. But what about the moment that you have a time, you have a certain time with your family? A lot of young girls who are like 21, 22, their friend, if their friends are married or in a living relation, they're always crying, I don't have someone to go out with, I don't. So if I say that, okay, why don't you just focus on your family right now? Because whenever you get married, you're not going to get the time which you have with your family. In the same way, students constantly thinking about, oh my God, ye ho gaya. But what about this moment? There's so much this moment has to offer. So, mindfulness meditation involves opening up or becoming more alert or conscious of these passing stream of thoughts, images, and emotions and sensations without identifying oneself with them. That is, let them pass. See, you can't stop that from coming, but you don't engage with them and you don't identify with them. So they're just coming, and they're just, you just see, like when you're sitting near a river and you see that, you know, it's constantly moving, the river is flowing. You don't engage into it, you just see it, you see it from, and you just observe it. The same with thoughts, let it just flow. But you don't have to you don't have to उस thoughts के अंदर डूबना नहीं, you don't have to dive into that river. Okay, just let it flow and don't engage it, don't engage with it. um and yeah, be in a comfortable position with your eyes closed, focusing on your breath, and then your thoughts. Try to um, pull your attention, simply notice them without passing any judgment about it. So, sitting here, thoughts coming, just notice them. Don't engage or pass judgments about them. Don't even struggle to stop them. Rather, gently return to your focus on breathing again. Why? Because when you focus on breathing, that's what you're doing in the present. You're doing that right now. Okay. So, that is something which is natural. You don't, a lot of times they say कि meditation में stop your negative thoughts. You can't just stop thinking. That's not, उससे अच्छा don't engage. Just acknowledge that it's happening. You don't have to engage with it. Okay. Next is, yeah, so we constantly keep focusing on your breath. That is mindfulness meditation focus. Okay. I don't know why all of these open up. To close them all. Okay. So many comment boxes open. Okay, resilience. What is resilience? I had given you guys an example of this situation in Romania where all the kids were they were left to be by themselves alone on the streets, or in orphanages, and when those kids were also adopted after a few years or a few months, they ended up living because as per psychology we have these developmental milestones and these things that have to be fulfilled to have a good and healthy life, but these guys had nothing of that sort, and they still lived an absolutely normal life. Itni mushkilon ke बावजूद, they've had a horrible childhood, they've had a horrible past, but still when they were adopted, most, like almost 70% of them ended up living a life as good as normal. So that is called resilience, the ability to basically bounce back from adversity. It's different from healing, because you healing takes a certain process. Resilience is like, it's also called the ordinary magic, because humko aisa lagta hai ki, oh my god, like if you watch these programs in I think it was in National Geographic, where it was that program was called I Shouldn't Be Alive First and Then I'm Alive. Such diverse conditions, and they still move out of it and they live after that, and that is resilience. And then you feel like, oh my god, ye to koi log hi kar sakte hai, but it's pretty ordinary. If you are in a similar situation, even you may end up doing something like that. So you are able to bounce back. Basically, it's not a superhuman or a rare ability. um it's the ability to bounce back or resisting cracking basically under pressure. बहुत सारा pressure डाल दिया है, but still you don't break. Okay. Resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stresses. So you go through horrible times, very bad moments, and still you're able to live very well in life. Um, okay, when people are faced with the adverse condition, there are three ways they can approach the situation. One is they react with anger or consider themselves as victims. The second one is they may collapse, feel overwhelmed by negative emotions like fear, anxiety, um, and it leads to psychological or physical diseases. Or they simply become upset about the disruptive change. Rather than waiting for things to happen, they try to make their goals a reality. So three ways: one is you become a victim, or you get angry and become a victim. Yeah. Second is you collapse, have an impact, it impacts your psychological, physical well-being. Or the third thing is you're upset about it. Obviously, you don't, maza nahi aata hai, but you're also focused on changing things. Okay, that doesn't mean that they experience less distress and trouble. They are going through same amount of trouble and trauma and problems. Okay. But they are able to handle difficulties in ways that foster strength and growth. Okay, basically that is, so it's, life is hard and painful. They know setbacks happen, but they also experience emotional pain, that is grief, or the sense of loss you feel after a tragedy. However, they emerge stronger out of those difficult times. So whatever difficult, maybe you were a victim of abuse, you were a victim of violence, and you emerge strong out of it. Or so, say, um, you experience loss at a very young age, you become stronger, and these are resilient individuals. The importance of resilience is that people who are low on resilience, usually tend to get overwhelmed by the challenges and experience emotional distress. Okay, it is seen that in such times they don't even feel confident about their ability. They feel anxious, um, अच्छा नहीं लगता है, and all of those things. Um, However, they are able to recover also and regain their confidence after a certain period and move forward in life. It is also linked to maintaining psychological well-being and positive emotions. So resilient individuals, the people who are low on resilience, feel challenged, overwhelmed, मैं कैसे कर पाऊंगी? And people who are strong on resilience are generally, um, they move out of any difficulties in life. There are 3 C's of resilience. Oops. Yeah. The first one is competence. Competence is how you handle situations effectively. um, and competence, people say how well you are able to, कोई भी मुश्किल है आप उससे किस प्रकार कितनी अच्छी तरह से डील कर पाते हो, that is competence. Confidence is, true confidence is your strong belief in your own ability that I can do it. Okay. And it is basically, it's also self efficacy. Confidence, in easy words, is gained by demonstrating. So if you show competence in, if you show that I've been able to handle the situation nicely, you're able to also um, be confident. And the third, oh, we have more. Oh no, sorry, there are 7 C's, right? Yeah, I got confused between the 3 C's of coping and this. There
Yeah,
are
there are
7 C's.
7 C's actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are 3 C's of, yeah. Okay. The next one is connection. Family is very central to your um, to an individual's life and security, and they give, so they also help you give good support and solutions to your issues. Character is basically your clear sense of what is right and wrong and a commitment to integrity. So no matter what, you are still honest in your ways of approaching your problem. That shows you feel worthy about yourself when you maintain a good character. Okay. And you also feel confident. The next one is contribution. So if you have if you have a sense of purpose in life, okay, um, then you are able to, that purpose motivates you to um, work towards psychological well-being. Okay. So that is contribution. I always say that people who are uh, doing something for the society, who are compassionate, these are the ones who are less likely to take extremely adverse, or they are less likely to be vulnerable to a lot of psychological issues, because and they're more likely to be happy because they have a strong purpose motivating their life force. So something even Viktor Frankl said, if you have a meaning in life, you will manage anyhow. Okay. When you have a why, you will make it anyhow. The next one is coping. So a person who learns to cope effectively with stress is also obviously better able to cope. Is any situation, it's tough. You have to learn to deal with life in a certain way if something goes wrong, but you're able to cope out of it. Then you can also cope with future challenges. And the next one is control. So when the individual knows that I can control my situation and my decision, and then they know I can bounce back. Okay. So even though it's a very bad situation, but then if they don't just constantly blame, my parents left me, I became an orphan, what can I do, meri to zindagi kharabi hogi, I will never be able to be good, and all of those things, they don't feel in control. They feel ki situation is controlled, meri zindagi to situation ke haath mein, dusron ke haath mein. People who take control are able to bounce back. Okay. Now, different types of resilience. One is psychological resilience, which is your ability to mentally withstand or adapt to uncertainty. So psychological resilience basically is you're able to, even if it's a very very stressful situation, you're able to stay calm and move on without prolonged negative consequences. Emotional resilience is basically your ability to cope emotionally with stress and adversity. So you are able to manage your emotions. People who are low on emotional resilience may not be able to do it very, very easily, and they're irrational. And emotional resilience is also, if it's a very tough situation and you're still able to be in control of your and not be driven by your emotions. People who are driven by the emotions may end up taking decisions which are very regretful, harmful to themselves or to others. The next one is physical resilience, which is basically your body's ability to adapt to challenges and maintain the stamina and strength. So you see a lot of people say they've had um, even say cancer, they've had disorders which are deadly, but their body bounces back. That's physical resilience. The next one is community resilience. So that is your ability of groups of people to respond to and recover from adverse situations such as natural disasters and all of this. In fact, recently I was listening to a lecture in big history, and one of the professors was speaking of how we have survived humanity has survived such huge natural disasters when the icebergs were melting, when things were changing. So that is community resilience, say like tsunami. After that, how they were able to come back. So basically, that is resilience. That brings an end to all our chapters and an understanding of what um, our positive psychology is. Anybody has any questions? You guys can remember all of
No,
this with
ma'am.
some examples. You guys can remember resilience with an example. Know somebody around you who's resilient. Okay. Um, yeah, they're good examples.
Mummy.
And if you can adapt to these, best for you.
Mm.
Okay, then that's great. What we'll do next is when we meet up, we'll just make a chart for all the chapters of a summary, like I said, the
Okay.
flow chart, such that you can see the chapter from a, because right now when you see these chapters are different pages. What I want you to see is you can see it from a holistic perspective. That is, you can see the whole chapter, and then that will help you narrow down your answers, and basically you know the whole chapter and everything that's in it. So that's what we'll work on. And yeah, that's, if you have any other questions, you can always um the lectures will also be available on YouTube, so always post it over there also. Yeah, there are other people also who respond, so that's it. But happy studying, and I hope that these lectures, if not in, if you don't want to pursue psychology, it's fine, but at least they bring some change in everybody's life.